Hey everyone, Sensor here, and welcome to another Marvel Avengers video. So now in this video, I'm going to be going over some tips if you're just getting started with the imminent launch of the game. I thought it would be a good thing to kind of share my experience of playing, so long in the beta. So anybody that maybe not have played beta or just kind of looking to, extra things to do when they're getting started, there are some things that you definitely will want to know. And so I'm going to go over 5 of those tips in this video. I'm going to go ahead and go over them in depth, but first I'm going to go ahead and say what those will be. There will be tips on, upgrading your gear while you're leveling, explanation of all the stats or attributes in the game, how the status effects work and what they all are, the tactical awareness, which is how you find, hidden chests and areas, and then, the leveling of your heroes and the challenge cards. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start with the first tip. Okay, so the first tip I wanted to go over is the gear and how you shouldn't upgrade all the gear you get while leveling. So while you're going through the game, like most RPGs and any other type of progression game where you level and get gear, you're going to replace your gear fairly quickly while you're leveling up. And you want to save your resources because you're going to be using these same resources for the in-game gear. So you don't want to use up too many just from leveling, especially because you're going to be replacing it fairly quickly. So I definitely would not upgrade green gear. Blue gear is the only one blue gear is where you start needing to upgrade or boost, if you will, in order to actually unlock the perks. But even then, I would at least wait till purple gear and till you get at least to a decent level. It's something you kind of have to, find out if you're going to need the extra power or not, but I would wait as long as possible for upgrading gear because you don't want to waste your materials. So the stat screen, if you're on controller, um, it's the right stick to show the stats, and you can do that at any of the menus. But basically, just wanted to go over real quick the stats. So might is melee damage, precision is range damage. Like these stats will increase those damage types. Proficiency will increase the chance that you have to get a critical hit and also the chance of your perks activating on your gear. So this can be really good for, if you have some good gear perks. Valor is your heroic effectiveness. So it's effectiveness because like Kamala has a heal, but then you also have like a damage one, or the support heroics don't usually damage. So it just how good are your heroic abilities, and also how much damage you do when you crit. So just to recap real quick, proficiency is your chance to crit. Valor is the amount of damage that you deal when you actually crit. And then resolve is your max willpower, which is just your health, and your willpower recovery, so how quick you recover your health. And then resilience is your armor, basically your defense. And then finally, intensity is stun status meter damage. So enemies will have a bar underneath their health. That's their stun bar. When you fill that bar up, then they're stunned, and that's when you can do your takedowns. And then the status meter is from your status effects, which I'll be going over in the next tip. But basically, it's just how much damage the status effect will do, or effectiveness of it. And it also, the intensity stat will also increase your status resistance. So if you're like, you're resistant to being frozen and other types of things. Now, one thing I wanted to point out besides those basic stats is the rating and the charge rates. So there's some contradiction in the game. So if you look at the rating real quick, the melee rating will show might does melee damage and ultimate heroic charge rate. Now, if you look at the bottom of the heroic stats, it says that the heroic charge rates are unaffected by any attribute. So that's literally a contradiction right there because might is an attribute and it says it increases your ultimate heroic charge rate. Now, I have noticed that when you change gear, that charge rate does not change, only from things like artifacts. So like right now I have 2% to all my heroic charge rates. If I put this artifact on that increases heroic assault by 16.7%, that'll be directly reflected. So now it's at 17%. So it's not it's not clear exactly if it's supposed to. The stats themselves say no, but the ratings say yes, and the tips while you're loading say yes. But for right now, I would just go ahead and say not to worry about trying to increase your heroic charge rate from stats and only from these artifacts. But either way, you can also look at these ratings at the top here to get a better understanding of, what your rating actually is. So your melee rating is that number comes from your might, valor, and proficiency. Might being melee damage, and the range rating is similar. It's the precision, which is the damage, and also the valor and proficiency. Again, those are the crit chance and crit damage. And then your defense rating will come from your resilience and resolve, so your armor and your maximum health. And then heroic rating comes from your resilience, valor, and intensity. This one is a little weird because it has the heroic charge rate. I mean, the support heroic charge rate, but it's doesn't have the other ones on there. This one comes strictly from the armor, the crit damage, and then the status damage. But that's how all the stats work. Now, this next tip I want to go over is the status effects because it is not clear unless you look at the loading screens. It's not always clear what all the status effects do. So I'm going to go over all the status effects that's in the game and exactly what they do. As you can see, your gear will have a certain symbol on them a lot of times, at least your attack gear, and each of these symbols is a status effect. And this one says heavy combo finisher deals shock damage. Well, if you don't know what shock damage does, you don't know if that's going to be helpful or not. So I'm just going to go from my notes here, starting with Cosmic. So Cosmic, which I actually do have a piece here, Cosmic damage will increase the damage that they take, and when you attack somebody that has the Cosmic effect on them, then it'll heal you. Now going to Pin Particles, the Pin Particles is probably one of my favorite, at least the way it looks. So basically, when you build up enough Pin Particles on the status meter, the enemy will shrink, and any enemy I've seen will shrink, even these big robots. Now, not bosses, I don't think, but some of these big elite robots will also shrink. But when they shrink, it increases the damage that they take, and it'll decrease the damage that they deal. So that's definitely very helpful. Now coming back to shock, shock is very nice for people that rely on crit and are doing like a crit build, especially for people like Black Widow. So shock will not only will it increase the damage that they take, but it'll also increase your chance to crit against the target. Now, Plasma, which I do not have one on right now, but Plasma was one of the harder ones to find. But basically, it burns the target, and it doesn't do burn damage. Like it's not like a dot. But what it does is it gives you a chance. The burn will have a chance to interrupt their attacks, and then some enemies will also be staggered by the effect. So that's really nice if you want to lower the possibility of them attacking. Now, the gamma poisoning is exactly what it sounds like. It's poisoning. But what's cool is this one, now it doesn't increase the damage that they take, but they will have poison damage over time, and that damage can spread to nearby enemies. On top of that, if they die with that effect on, they'll cause a gamma explosion. And then finally, we'll go to cryo, which is a little bit different from the actual freeze effect that can be put on heroes. But cryo will slow their movement, it'll decrease the frequency of all actions, and then it'll also disable some defensive abilities. So, as you can see, some of these status effects can be really nice, especially if you have, stuff that like intensity. You can get a build that kind of focuses on certain status effects and has good synergy with certain skills and heroes, such as Black Widow having increased crit chance, having the invisibility perk that increases her crit chance, and then you have Shock to increase it even further. Now this tip is just going to be real short. I just wanted to go over the tactical awareness. I did a full video on this, so you can go and check that if you want all the details. But basically, you use tactical awareness by pressing up on the D-pad if you're on a controller, and it just brings up those symbols that will tell you like where all the other bonus areas are at. So you don't miss out on anything. Make sure you do that. And now the last tip I want to go over is basically level up each hero. I know that there'll be people that just like certain heroes above others, but it's going to definitely benefit you to upgrade multiple heroes so that you can, if you are ever playing solo, you can have your own heroes in the group with your own gear and all the other stuff. If you just happen to play with somebody that is playing your hero that you want to play, and then you have another hero that you can play. But also, you want to work on their challenge cards because the challenge cards will give you these points that are used for their, it's kind of like a pass in other games like Fortnite or any game that uses like a season pass type of thing. So you do these challenges, like this one is defeat enemies with heroic attacks, and there are weekly and daily challenges. The weekly ones obviously will give more than the daily ones. And when you get these points, you'll unlock these, cosmetic effects. So like, nameplates, um, outfits, and you can, look through all of the different options that you can unlock. And you also I believe this is the premium currency. You can basically kind of skip ahead to certain challenges. The further you go ahead, the more it'll cost. But just doing these challenges, you'll be able to unlock them eventually. It'll just take a little bit longer. So that's all for my tips on beginning the Marvel Avengers game. If you're just starting, hopefully these tips will, get you an edge and, just get you started pretty well when you first pick up the game. If you liked the video, please give a like and subscribe for future videos. And as always, thanks for watching.